Yeah, well, no, I never really got a clear answer on that. They told me that I was receiving a trespass warning and that I could not go back on campus, otherwise I would be arrested. And when I asked why, at first I thought it was suspicious. They told me at first that it was for suspicious activity, but they didn't tell me exactly what I did that was suspicious about it. I did speak with Captain Richard Wooten about it as well, and he told me that I had received multiple complaints from multiple people, but he did not tell me whether or not he checked to see if those complaints were valid complaints. I mean, anyone can complain about anybody. I could call my friends and say, "Hey, let's go complain about Bob or whatever." And he didn't tell me what those complaints were.
And I know, so my two investigators I don't know if you remember, but they made contact you.
Yes.
And they did explain to you, you guys had like about approximately 12-minute discussion about it. It was complaints about you on and around campus with your Annabelle doll and people calling you in and posting images on social media, that kind of stuff. But you kind of answered your own question about it.
Well, we also spoke about that. I also told him, I'm like, if this is about the Annabelle doll getting trespassed over a doll, I think is a little harsh. And I've explained to them several times, all I did was walk around with a doll. It was just an innocent prank to get reactions from people, and I really don't understand what the big deal about it was.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Mr. Ortiz. In my 13 years of working here at FSU, I don't think we've ever experienced anybody walking around with an Annabelle doll, getting reactions from people. I mean, that's just my experience, so that's why those investigators issued you a trespass warning.
Yeah, that still doesn't, just because something's never been done before that doesn't explain why they did what they did. I didn't do anything wrong or criminal or hurtful to other people. I think it's pretty easy to understand that I just did it because I thought it was funny.
Which is understandable. You have a right to do stuff, but on campus, you have to understand that our job is to protect our campus property, staff, students, employees, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And we trespass people for a variety of reasons to protect, which is why we issue trespass warnings.
Okay, so what did I do that's endangering the students or other people?
No, it's not just endangering, it's just odd behavior. So we have the due diligence, again, to protect our campus, so we can trespass a variety of people for a variety of reasons.
Protect the campus from what? Yeah, but protect the campus from what? I didn't do anything that put anyone in danger at all.
Well, we did it as a precaution, which is something that we typically do. Have you had a conversation with Captain Wooten by chance?
Yes, I have. And he didn't give me a clear answer. He specifically told me as well that because I'm not a student here that I had no business being on campus, but it's my understanding that it's a public campus anyway. And I certainly don't want to go to school here now after the way I've been treated.
I would agree with Captain Wooten.
So why is it a public university then if I can't go on campus simply because I'm not a student here?
That's just not the one reason. The investigators explain to you why you're being trespassed.
Okay, but it's one of the reasons that he mentioned, and there are plenty of non-students that walk on that campus every day, so how come they're not also being trespassed from campus?
Because they're not exhibiting odd behavior.
Okay, I only walked on campus with that doll one time. I went to the fountain with the doll one time. Officers came and checked out the scene. They actually told me that I was good because I wasn't doing anything wrong. And I told them, I'm like, listen, this is probably not going to be your first call about me. And they said, well, we'll know it's you. Don't worry about it. And then the next day, their whole attitude changed about it. I didn't go back on campus with that doll after that. But after a week, that's when they came to my job to inform me about the trespass. And I'd also like to ask, how come I've never received any proof of that? Because according to my research online, it's a requirement that the police hand you some sort of documentation and a case number, yet they didn't hand me any of that. And every time I've asked someone down at the station, including Captain Wooten, there's always some excuse as to why they can't show me proof. And I don't show up on the trespass log that's on the website.
What do you mean by proof? So the county, CPD, and us, we can verbally trespass somebody from any of our buildings, any of our property. The proof is the officers or the investigators making contact with you. I'm not sure I understand that question.
Okay, so y'all keep a log of who y'all trespass from campus on y'all's website that I've looked at several times, and so far I'm not on there. Why is that?
That's a very good question. Are you sure? When was the last time you searched it?
Probably last week, but I've been checking on that repeatedly since they told me that I've been trespassed.
Okay, let's see if that's accurate. Let me pull it up. Give me a second, Mr. Ortiz. Well, you're correct on that. I'm not sure why you're not on the website unless your name got misspelled. I'll have to get with our IT staff about that.
Okay, and there's also been times where I've asked Wooten and other people that work down at the FSU police station, I've asked them for proof of that, and they will not provide it to me.
Proof of your trespass card?
Correct.
I mean, that's documentation for us, but I don't have a problem giving you a copy of it.
Okay, and when can I get that?
What's your availability today?
So, are you able to send it to me via email, or would it be in person?
Either way, whatever is easier for you.
You can email it to me.
Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I can email it to you. Go ahead with your email address.
My email address is...
Okay, I can send you a copy of that TPW card for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there anything else before I'll let you go?
Well, no, that was it. I mean, I'm still not understanding why I'm being so severely punished when I did absolutely nothing wrong, especially when I only did it one time. So yeah, I'm still not quite understanding like why y'all are taking this as such an extreme.
Well, I would disagree with the extreme part. I would say if you were arrested, that would be extreme. But again, I think we've already explained it to you along with the investigators and my captain about the Annabelle doll causing, a concern for the people at FSU, which resulted in you being trespassed.
Yeah, that still doesn't answer my question. People were concerned over a doll. I mean, it's just a doll. I haven't brought the doll back out either, so I don't understand why this is such a huge issue. And yeah, y'all can't arrest me because it's not illegal to walk around with a doll.
You're right. And that's why I said I would agree with you, or I would say that would probably be extreme. But this is where we stand right now, but I will definitely, hopefully within the next hour, I can email you a copy of your trespass card, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, call me back at this number, Mr. Ortiz, if you got any questions, okay?
Okay, what was your name again?
Sure, it's Corporal Mike Palusic. My badge number is 302.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you have a good week, okay?
You too. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Adonis podcast. That conversation that you just heard was my conversation this morning with an officer from the Florida State Police Department. I have been trying to get to the bottom of the Annabelle case, starting off with the police department and trying to figure out why it was such a big deal. Because they keep saying, oh, you were trespassed from suspicious activity, yet they won't show me proof of said trespass. They keep saying, oh, we got a lot of complaints. Okay, what were those complaints? What did I do that made you feel endangered? Telling me, oh, you walked around with a creepy doll, that's not enough. It's a piece of plastic with a dress on. What exactly about the doll makes you feel unsafe? What makes you think that I'm going to do something to harm others? And I've gone all the way to the top of the police department. As you know, I've spoken more than once with their captain, Richard Wooten. And every time, they just dance around my questions and don't give me a clear answer. So I started contacting the FSU's president's office. And instead of putting the president on the phone, they blocked my number and sent the cops after me again. Fortunately, I have a workaround for that, so I've been repeatedly calling the FSU's president's office because although they said, oh, someone will get back to you, I know from experience with FSU over the years that if you're not persistent, they will not get back to you for months, or in my case, ever. So I just started calling them other day, and while my number is blocked, like I said, I have a workaround for that. So, and this is how I know my number is blocked. Well, let me explain. When I first started calling, they would pick up immediately. I would introduce myself, and I would tell them I would like to speak with your president, Richard McCullough, in regards to FSU PD. And I would explain to them that they are telling me that I am trespassed without providing proof or an exact reason as to why I am trespassed. So, since I keep going around in circles, I'd like to go to the man who's at the top of the food chain. They always say, we'll pass the information along. Eventually, what happened is the phone would go straight to voicemail, but when I masked my phone number, then they would go back to picking up the phone immediately. And I don't believe in coincidences. That's no coincidence. So either they recognize my contact information and are choosing to ignore me, or they blocked my number. One of the two. I would also like to point out that I specifically told the receptionist that I wanted to speak to McCullough because I'm not getting answers from people at FSU PD. So what did the dumb fuck do? They decided to send FSU PD after me again. And once again, I am left with no answers. Let's break down that phone call conversation. So, we now officially have confirmation that I was trespassed over a doll. Because I explained to him I've been told things like suspicious activity and I'm not getting an exact reason. He said, oh, well, you kind of answered your own question because you were on and around campus with an Annabelle doll. Okay, what was wrong with that? And if you listen to that phone conversation, I asked him that more than once, yet he could not tell me exactly why what I was doing was wrong or dangerous. But we finally have confirmation that these idiots trespassed me over a plastic fucking doll. Because before, when I would talk to them, I would ask them why, and they wouldn't give me an exact reason, or they would just hit me with the suspicious activity. And then when I would ask them if it was about the Annabelle doll, they would not confirm or deny it. Also, what suspicious activity are y'all talking about? Because I have been compliant and honest with the police from the start. From the first time they approached me, I freely gave them my ID, gave them my name and my information, and I told them I am doing this as a prank because I think it is funny watching people's reactions. I'm just, in their own words, trolling people. The first time I spoke to them, it wasn't an issue. The next day, it was suddenly a huge issue. Why is that? I don't know, because I wasn't doing anything differently from the previous night. And the second time I spoke with them, I wasn't even on their campus. So, I don't understand. I still don't understand what the issue was. That officer did admit several times that I was right about many things, including the fact that I am not on their registry on their website, which makes me question again, how did Nova find out about the trespass? Because as I've spoken about this before, Nova found out about that trespass way before I started talking about it. And when I asked Wooten how do they know about this trespass, he said, oh, well, we keep a list of who we trespass online. I've been looking online for months. Since this happened all the way back in April, it is August now. Nothing. I'm nowhere on there. Which leads me to further believe that I'm not actually trespassed. If that trespass doesn't come up on my background check or on my record, and it's nowhere on the website, how did Nova find out before I started publicly talking about it? He also stated a bunch of bullshit that was not necessary. For example, I've been working here for 13 years and we've never had to deal with somebody walking around with an Annabelle doll. Okay. I don't care if you've worked here for 100 years or 1 day. That is not relevant. That's not relevant information to my case. And whether or not you've dealt with this before does not necessarily mean that what I am doing is wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of people on campus that have done things that you've never had to deal with before. I know certainly I've done things that you wouldn't expect. I'm Adonis. I'm not a copycat of everybody else. I do my own thing. I get creative with my hobbies. So yeah, of course you've never put up with anyone like me because there is no one like me. We also spoke about my conversation with Wooten and how Wooten exclusively stated that I had no business being on campus as I was not a student, which this officer said that he would agree with Wooten, and to which I said, why is it a public university then if I can't walk on campus simply because I'm not a student? Why is it then classified as a public space? And then he goes, oh, well, that's not the only reason. Okay, well, it shouldn't be a reason at all because it is a public space. If I am doing something wrong or not wrong, if you feel that I should be trespassed from campus because of my actions, it should not matter whether I am a student or not, because I'm in a public space. So let me ask you this, which I've asked this question a million times. If I or someone else happened to be a student and did what I did, would they have taken this situation as seriously as they had? Or do certain people get special privileges simply because they're a student? I told him there are non-students that walk on that campus every single day. How come they're being trespassed? How come I'm being trespassed and they are not? To which he responded, oh, they're not exempting odd behavior. Okay, what's odd to you and what's odd to me is irrelevant. You can't just say, oh, you're odd, trespass. Because you find something odd or not odd does not necessarily mean it's wrong. And it's not odd what I'm doing. People play pranks both on friends, on each other, and in public all the time. And I explained to them that it was a prank several times. I would actually argue that my prank was actually one of the least painful and least disturbing pranks of all time. For example, the guy who just got arrested for 9 years for screaming inside of stores, I would argue what he did was disturbing of peace. I've seen videos of people running up to strangers and dumping water on their heads, which I would argue is assault. I sometimes watch the show Impractical Jokers, where they do all kinds of crazy shit at public spaces, including parks, stores, restaurants. And I honestly want to know how many lawsuits they have, because a lot of the stuff that they have done on their show is funny but also questionable. I simply minded my own business while walking around with a doll. How I choose to present myself is my own choice and nobody else's. Even if this wasn't a prank and I thought it was completely normal to carry a doll around, that's within my right to do it. The reason why I keep going over this conversation is because he kept interrupting me and didn't let me fully speak. Now, I did edit out the part where I told him my email for my own privacy. One of the key factors probably the most important part of this conversation is him telling me that he disagreed with me when I said that what they did was extreme. He said that what would be extreme would be is if they arrested me for the doll. And to that I responded, you can't arrest me because I did nothing illegal. I didn't do anything criminal. I did not break the law or commit a crime. And he said, well, yes, I agree with you. He said something to the effect of, I agree with that, and that's why I said it would be an extreme if we arrested you. I'm sorry, you shouldn't even be saying this right now, okay? You cannot legally arrest me for walking around with a doll. Therefore, you shouldn't even be bringing up the possibility of making an arrest. Whether or not I'm actually trespassed from campus, I have not been back on campus since they told me I was trespassed in April. So you cannot arrest me for trespassing. And you cannot, once again, I cannot state this clearly enough, you cannot arrest someone for simply walking around with a doll. His arguments are extremely invalid. And this is why I want to talk to the president and not FSU PD, because his conversation went just how it goes about with every other officer, where they dance around my questions and they don't tell me exactly why. Why? Because this is how it typically goes. Why am I trespassed from campus? Oh, suspicious activity. What suspicious activity? I told you exactly what I was doing and why I was doing it. Okay. You were trespassed because of the Annabelle doll. Why? Because it's dangerous for safety, for school safety. We do this to protect our students. Protect them from what? I asked him more than once, protection from what? Well, that's not the only thing. Do you see the irony in all of this? He's literally dancing around all the questions. Well, that's not the only thing. I didn't ask you if that was the only thing. You responded to my question, oh, we do things like this to protect our students. I responded, protection from what? What did I do to make y'all feel that I was a threat to the safety of other people? You can't give me a straight answer. All they fucking do every time I get on the phone with them is dance around my questions. They couldn't give me a straight answer to save their fucking lives if they so needed to. They know that what they're pulling is bullshit, and they know that they don't actually have a valid reason to do what they did. Well, you're not a student here. Okay, but it's a public campus. Oh, well, that's not the only reason. Once again, dancing around my fucking questions. Just answer the questions. What they should have done, if an Annabelle doll was such a big deal, because listen, I may or may not be allowed on campus. It seems that the issue that they have is not really with me personally, but with the doll itself. So what if I start hiring people to walk around on campus with dolls, regardless of the fact whether or not they are students? You can't tell me what to do with my money, except for extreme cases like the sale of drugs or prostitution, but this isn't the case. If I give someone $20 or $50 or $100 to walk around on their campus with a doll, there's nothing illegal about that, and there's nothing they can do to stop me. They might trespass that person too. What if I keep doing it with multiple people? Are they going to start trespassing everyone every day for walking around with a creepy object? What they should do is make a new rule that dolls are not allowed on campus then, instead of coming after me personally and telling me, hey, you yourself are not allowed on our campus ever. They themselves are making it an issue and then choosing not to resolve it. You may be able to trespass me from campus property. What about outside of campus? I pass by campus every day. The sidewalk is still public. You can't trespass me from public roads and public sidewalks, which that's another question I have. Florida State is so big. Listen, there's been times where I've been out and about and I've ended up on campus without even realizing it because of how big the campus is.
there are public roads that run through campus as well. So does that mean am I allowed on those roads or not? They're so unspecific with where exactly I'm trespassed from. Now, I would assume I can't go on Landis Green or go into one of their buildings, which I already don't go into their buildings because I don't need to. But what about the public roads that cut through campus that people use as shortcuts all the time? Am I allowed to go on those roads, or do I have to go all the way around their gigantic campus? He did mention that they themselves, as well as the Tallahassee Police Department, can verbally trespass anyone for any reason. So after my phone call with him, I called the Tallahassee Police Department and spoke with a police officer to verify this information. And I do have proof of that as well. I told the police officer my situation, and there's nothing TPD or the sheriff's office can do about it because Florida State has their own police department. But I asked him, this officer is basically making it seem like an officer can just point at you and say trespass, and you don't need proof, because I also asked the FSU officer on the phone at the beginning of this podcast, I asked him why I haven't received any proof of that, and he basically implied that that was for them personally, although he doesn't have a problem sending it to me, and I do have that information now, after months of begging for it. That is a straight up lie. Under Florida law, you are entitled to see any and all legal documents containing your name. You can even look at your own IRS file or FBI file. And I have explained the procedure for trespassing someone multiple times on my podcast and online that I've done research into myself. If a police officer could just point at you and say trespass and not be required to write it down or give you a case number, then why is there a whole procedure in place that these officers follow? And I spoke about that with TPD today as well. What would be the point of going through the process of getting your ID, taking a picture if you don't provide an ID, giving you a card with your case number, or in FSU's case, uploading a picture of the person that they have trespassed onto their website? What would be the point of going through all that if you can just say trespass and make a note of it somewhere in your system? Additionally, if you could just go in your system and type in, I spoke with this person on this date at this time, and he is trespassed, but I'm not allowed to see that. How do I know that you didn't just entirely make that up? We could go to court right now, and you show the judge off, Your Honor, look, here is the card where I put in our system that the person who's been trespassed has never seen, that states when they were trespassed and why. Okay, where is your proof, though, that you actually had this conversation with me? There's a reason why they document things and why those documents are public information. So here is what the card says. It says FSU Police Department Field Contact Card. It has the date, which I can't read thanks to someone's horrible handwriting. It looks like it was done in pencil, honestly. Time 3:12 p.m. Case number 2025-03290089. I'm gonna look at that later. Race black, sex male, height 5'5", weight 160. Yeah, I got that wrong. Hair black, eyes BE. I don't know what that's short for, but my eye color is brown. That if that's supposed to be an R, that doesn't look like an R. Complexion light, I don't know what that means. Age 21. Let's see, we got street address, location of this contact, trespass warning, trespass, Florida statutes 810.08 and 810.09 make it a crime to be on the reference property after having received actual communication warning of trespassing. Returning to or remaining on this property subjects you to arrest by Florida State University Police Department officers. Acknowledgement of warning verbal. Okay, yeah, I'm going to look up this case number. I'm going to look up these Florida statutes. I'm going to look up all of that after this podcast. Officer J. Reed, badge number 417. Remarks, suspicious activity, clothing associates, etc. Trespassed from all of FSU campus due to suspicious activity on campus. What suspicious activity? I told you exactly what I was doing and why. There's nothing suspicious about it. I am going to upload a picture of this card on my Instagram later, so if you're not following me on Instagram, my Instagram is podcast by crazyclubbing23. I will also note in the email that they sent me, it says confidentiality notice. The information contained in this electronic message is legally privileged and confidential and is intended only for the use of the individual or entity named above. I guess that this is them trying to say that I can't share it, but I'm going to. This document has my name on it, and I'm going to share it with whoever I want to, whether that's publicly or privately. I would also like to point out that I've been asking for this for months now. Since April. It is now August. I've been on this case for months. And they have not provided me with that until today. And by the looks of it, and you can see by the picture, this honestly looks like something. So first of all, I can see a bar where they are blocking some sort of information. So there's literally something crossed out with a black bar. So they're covering up information from me. Why is that? This looks like literally anyone can print up a copy of this card at any time, write on it with pencil or paper, and upload this to their server, to the internet, to wherever. So for all I know, they could have made this all up today or a few days ago and taken a picture of it and uploaded it to their servers and then sent me the email to make it look like, oh, this has existed since April. How do I know that this has existed since April? That's why police officers follow a certain procedure when trespassing people, so that I can't go to court and say to the judge, hey, so this card was written up yesterday. I also sent this to a friend of mine who also pointed out the exact same thing I said. He said, I think they made it a few days ago because you kept on saying there wasn't one. That reason is so dumb, being trespassed just for a doll. They should have said he had a scary doll instead of suspicious activity. And he's right, especially because they dance around my questions instead of being formal with me, instead of telling me, hey, we are trespassing you because of the doll, and now let me explain to you why that doll is a danger. Because they instead want to dance around my questions, because they want to keep information from me, because they're being shady and they're not being honest with me. That just raises more questions to dig into. I don't believe that this is real, because if they had this all along, especially since they had told me before that they would get me more information on my case, why did they only send it to me after I publicly bashed them multiple times and contacted the president of Florida State? Now, after this conversation, I called the president's office again. I've called them twice today, actually. And I explained to the receptionist that I wanted to specifically speak with Richard McCullough, their president, and not anyone from the Florida State Police Department, because, like that conversation in the beginning of this podcast, every time I talk to someone from Florida State Police Department, we just go around in circles and we don't resolve anything. That is why I went to the guy at the top of the food chain. But does the president even know about this? I honestly don't know, because I haven't spoken to him. I've only spoken to the receptionist and to the police. I got this voicemail from that same officer earlier this afternoon.
Hey, Adonis Ortiz, this is Corporal Mike Poluzic from FSU PD. I'm just reaching reaching back out to make sure that you got an email with the hard copy. And if you don't mind, if you have any questions or comments or concerns about it, you don't need to reach out to the president's office or anybody at FSU other than me, okay? So reach out back to me. My direct line is 85.
I'm not putting his phone number on here because that's just not necessary for the podcast. And he specifically said if I had any other questions, I don't need to reach out to the president's office or anybody at FSU other than himself. Now, just because you carry around a badge does not mean that you are above the law. Just because you are a police officer does not mean you get to tell me who I can and cannot contact. We do have the right to remain silent, which is what I'm going to do with FSU PD from here on forward. I have blocked Officer Mike's number because I do not want to talk to him ever again. He is not helping me. He's actually making the situation more complicated than it needs to be. He does not have the right to tell me who I can and cannot contact, regardless of whether or not they're associated with his school. And also, what did he mean when he said, I don't need to contact anyone at FSU other than himself? Is he talking about everyone there? Does that mean I can't contact any students, any staff, anybody? I can only contact him? I do have friends that go to FSU still. Does that mean I now cannot talk to them? Simply because an officer said so, and according to his logic, whatever a police officer says is now law? So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to contact the president's office and try to have a conversation with Richard McCullough. And I am going to ignore FSU PD entirely because they have no reason to contact me. I've made it very clear that I don't want to talk to them. I want to talk to the president. I want to talk to the man who oversees and is in charge of FSU. And I am not required by law to speak to Officer Mike or anyone else from any police department. Even if I was guilty of a crime, even if I got arrested, I still have the right to remain silent. I can sit in that courtroom and not say a word. So I'm not going to listen to his orders or advice or whatever you want to call it and stop calling up there. No, I'm going to now, he's blocked. If I pick up the phone and him or anyone else from the police department is trying to talk to me, I'm not going to speak to them. I'm going to hang up the phone. I am not required by law to speak to anybody I don't want to, regardless if they are part of some sort of law enforcement or not. I want to speak to the president and the president only. I believe that I have done nothing wrong in regards to the Annabelle case. I believe that the police are abusing their power and they are trying to intimidate me and hoping that I will crumble under pressure and leave the whole situation alone and never go back to their campus again. They probably expected me to move out of Tallahassee entirely by now, and they're probably upset that their influence did not cause me to leave this city entirely, and I am still on their side of town. Let me give you another example. The other day, I was out for my nightly bike ride. As many of you know, I have an e-bike, which is a lot of fun to ride, and I often ride around College Town for fun. There was a night when they were following me, and I know this because you'll see me biking up and down Madison Street and Gain Street, which are on the same block. You know how they tell you to use a 4-turn method if you believe someone is following you, where you basically make a giant circle, and if by the 4th turn that car is still behind you, that's how you know people are following you? Well, I didn't have to do that with FSU PD because I'm already going around in circles. I'm literally circling the block over and over and over again. And for about an hour straight, there were about 5 or 6 FSU patrol cars following me around. And then most recently, I had an incident with a police officer where I was riding my bike after a rainstorm. He stopped me and told me that if I was going to have my e-bike on the street, that I needed to wear safety goggles. I asked him, if I pull over to the sidewalk, is it then okay? And he said, yeah, on the sidewalk is fine without eye protection. So I pulled over to the sidewalk. I got out my phone. I looked up the laws regarding e-bikes. In Florida, an e-bike generally has the same rules as a regular non-electric bicycle. You can take it on the road or the sidewalk. Eyewear is recommended but not required by law. Now, if you're riding a motorcycle, it is required by law that you keep it on the road, do not take it on the sidewalk, and you need to wear eye protection at all times, which is usually people wear helmets that come with that slide down visor, so that's not an issue. I'm sorry, this is not a motorcycle, this is an e-bike, so the same laws do not apply. And a big reason why I like my e-bike is because unlike a car or a motorcycle, I can literally take it wherever I want to. I can ride in the street, I can ride on the sidewalk. I looked around, I was going to confront the officer and show him my proof that what he told me was false, and then ask him for proof of what he said, that if I'm on the sidewalk, eye protection is not required, but if I'm on the road, I must have eye protection. I've never seen anyone on a bicycle wearing eye protection. I've seen people wearing sunglasses when it was sunny out, but I've never seen anyone in my life wearing eye protection while on a bicycle. Additionally, I've had that e-bike for months, and no officer has ever stopped me ever for not wearing eye protection. Additionally, that night I was biking all around the city. The Tallahassee Police Department were by College Town, Potbellies, and the Strip, all areas which I passed several times. I even spoke to a couple of them casually, and they did not care about me or my bicycle. When I was passing by campus, that's when FSU PD stopped me and they were like, oh, we got a problem. You're not wearing goggles. Now, the reason why motorcyclists are required to wear eyewear is because they are traveling at a higher speed than most vehicles, and therefore they're more prone to have something fly up in their face. My e-bike, because it's an e-bike, it can't reach those speeds, so there's no need to be concerned about that. But if that was the officer's concern, that something was going to fly into my face and cause me to crash, do you think that would stop because I'm on the sidewalk? Do you think obstacles just magically fly away because I move from the road to the sidewalk? Do you think a pebble or a bug can't get in my eye now because I'm on the sidewalk and not in the road? The logic here doesn't make any sense. Also, how is it safer to go 20 miles an hour down the road where there are pedestrians and people out? And for reference, this happened around midnight, so there were a lot of people coming and going from Westcott Fountain. So there were a lot of people walking on the sidewalk. So it is actually safer for me to stay on the road with the cars and keep up with the cars and stay on the road instead of flying 20 miles an hour downhill where all the pedestrians are. There's a higher risk of me hitting someone riding on the sidewalk than if I stay in the streets, especially during a time like that night where there are a lot of people utilizing that sidewalk and not as many cars. Yeah, had I taken the officer's advice, I would have actually put more people in danger. I honestly was just trying to think back and figure out, why did he stop me and why did he tell me to move my bike? And I thought, well, a lot of people do mistake my bike for a motorcycle because of the way it's built. So maybe he thought it was a motorcycle. But then I said, no, that can't be the case, because if he told me to ride the motorcycle on the sidewalk, that would literally be illegal, not to mention unsafe for the pedestrians. After I confirmed that what he told me was completely false, I literally got right back on the road and kept doing what I was doing as if I didn't just have that conversation with him. I was waiting to see if someone would pull me over, but no, they didn't. Even though I kept passing FSU PD multiple times, they didn't do shit. That officer had no reason to stop me. A police officer's job is to enforce the law, not make up his own laws or rules and not to give advice unless people ask for it. I was not on campus that night. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was literally just riding by and minding my own business. And he decided to have an issue. Why? Because I'm not wearing goggles. Since when is that a thing? Seriously. So first I'm getting trespassed over a doll, which was just confirmed today. Now you're upset because I'm not wearing goggles. Let me remind you once again, just because they have a badge, they are not above the law. And what they say is not necessarily an order that you have to follow. Honestly, FSU PD is so bad at what they do. Now I get this incredible cheat code where if they tell me one thing, I just do the exact opposite. Whatever they tell me, I just do the exact opposite because I know they're wrong 100% of the time. Just in this conversation today, he admitted 2 to 3 times that I was right about many things, while I can't recall one thing that he was correct about in that phone call. Now, when I spoke to the Tallahassee Police Department this morning about the whole thing, he did say that there are certain instances where a verbal trespass warning has been issued, and I have explained that process before. There's still documentation. You can still go to the police station and request to see proof of that trespass. He even told me, he said, why don't you get in contact with the records department? And he said, because he's like, by law, they're required to give you any and all information with your name. And I told him I've done that and they won't give it to me. And he's like, oh, well, that's weird because at the Tallahassee Police Department, you can go down there and ask them for any reports they have with your name and they will give it to you for a small fee. It's like $2 or something. And I also told him how they came to my job, which is about 15 minutes away from campus, to tell me that I was trespassed. And he asked me, how did they even know where you worked? And I said, I have no idea. That's another question that I have. How did they figure out where I worked at? And why was this so important that they needed to come all the way to my job and stop me and so-called trespass me? His response to that was that they probably got a lot of phone calls and they were very annoyed because they kept getting phone calls. And he said they must have been really annoyed at you because he told me out of all the people he's trespassed, he has never tracked someone down to their job and gone to their job to inform them of their trespass. So he said probably what happened is they got a lot of complaints and they got tired of it and probably figured, you know what, let's trespass this guy. Okay, I don't understand how that solves the issue. I don't even understand what the issue was in the first place, but I'll go stand in front of your campus on the public sidewalk with the doll and people will call you and complain. And then you can come and talk to me and it ain't gonna do shit because first of all, I'm not talking to you guys. And secondly, you can't fucking kick me off of a public sidewalk. So yeah, don't push my buttons because I tend to take things to the extreme and I only get more extreme until my issue is resolved and I get what I want. Because let me tell you this, I have a contingency plan that I have activated. I've spoken about contingency plans on this podcast before. And basically, I come up with scenarios in my head should someone go rogue and what I would do to counter their attacks. Now, I wonder, is it that Makalo doesn't want to talk to me, so he's sending the police to do it? Or is it that Makalo doesn't know and they don't want him to know, so they're trying to scare me away from him so that they don't get in trouble for what they've done? And I'm not going to tell you what my contingency plan is because then that's just going to give them a way to strategize and counter my attack. No, I want my plan to work, so I'm not going to tell you what my contingency plan is. But I'm going to tell you what the end result is going to be. If after I've gone through all the phases of my plan and I'm still stuck in the same box, I am going to walk on campus, I'm going to call the police department, and I'm going to tell them to come get me because I'm on campus after being told that I am trespassed. We'll wait and see what happens. Now, if they decide to arrest me for trespassing, that is actually what I want to happen. I'd rather not go to jail, but if nothing else works, and I am going to go to jail because this is the only way I can get to the bottom of this. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to trespass on campus. I'm going to get myself arrested. This way, I can finally get in a courtroom because everyone that gets arrested has to go on trial at some point. So I'm going to finally get in a courtroom. And I honestly just want to put this in front of a judge. I want to see what the judge and jury and the courtroom have to say about a guy getting trespassed from a public area because he had a doll with him. I'm not kidding. Let me say that again. If all else fails, I will walk on their campus, I will trespass on their campus and get myself arrested so that we can get to the bottom of this and squash it. I'm not giving up until this is completely squashed. If I can squash it legally, then I will squash it illegally by trespassing on their campus and getting myself arrested so we can get into the courtroom and we can settle this and see who is in the wrong or who is more wrong and what should have been done by both me and also the police department, because I am confident that as of now I'm in the right and they are in the wrong. I also need to point out how they are focusing on the wrong thing. They pretend to listen to their students, but they really don't. Charlie Kirk came to campus. It was either earlier this year, or sometime last year. And plenty of students complained about this. I'm not complaining. I actually listened to Charlie Kirk, so I'm not trying to sound like a complainer. There's a lot of stuff that he says there's a lot of stuff that he says that I agree with, especially college being a scam. Now, while Charlie Kirk and I talk about a lot of the same subjects, he is a lot nicer about it than I am. But I will say, we have freedom of speech in this country, and we're still talking about the same subject. Several students complained that they did not want Charlie Kirk on their campus, but the school did not listen. Several students complained about a doll, and the school decides to cave in to peer pressure, and they're like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and punish someone who did nothing wrong, and they still treat me like a criminal when I'm not one. Why have they not advanced their security measures after the Phoenix Eichner shooting back in April, exactly 1 week after my Annabelle case? This is something else that I want to talk about. So during the Annabelle case, there were a lot of rumors about me being spread on the internet, especially on Yik Yak, where people were accusing me of violent things. One of the rumors that was spread was that I was going to shoot up the school. And exactly a week after that, Eichner walked on campus and shot up the school. Several reports state that Eichner threatened to shoot up the school the day before, but people thought he was just making a dark joke, and the police decided to do nothing about it. During the school shooting, before we knew who shot up the school, people online were saying that I was the one doing it. Obviously, that's not the case, as we now know who did. And I couldn't help but think that I was somehow tied to the school shooting, because what a coincidence that someone said I was gonna do it, and then exactly a week later someone else did it. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe coincidences exist. And I thought of this the other day. Now, there were several people who wanted to get me arrested, several people that were accusing me of things that I didn't do in hopes of getting me arrested. I think FSU was even trying to get me arrested at one point. I know for a fact Nova was trying to get me arrested multiple times. So I thought to myself, I wonder if Eichner, or someone who knows Eichner, planned for Eichner to shoot up the school and then frame me for the crime so that I would get life in prison or something. But then maybe something happened and Eichner got caught before he could get away with it and frame me for it. Now that's just a theory. Maybe I'm completely wrong. However, I still strongly believe that I am somehow tied to the school shooting, and I just haven't figured it out yet because, like I said, there are no such thing as coincidences. I believe that the shooting and the deaths and injuries are the fault of Florida State and their police department and their president because they focus on the wrong things like an Annabelle doll when they should instead be worried about, hey, one of our own students just threatened to blow up the school. That should be enough to at least bring him in for questioning. But they didn't do that, and look what happened. I would argue because they are focused on the wrong things instead of real issues, that's why Eichler did what he did and got away with it. And I would not be surprised if it happened again because they have done absolutely nothing to advance security. I live in the area, so I pass by campus quite frequently. And I regularly see FSU PD doing their patrols, but it's no different from what they were doing before. I have a friend of mine who told me that they now have a cop that sits outside the student union at night. I said, okay, what about the rest of campus? And simply sitting outside the student union, that's not going to stop someone from walking in with a gun and shooting up the place. Somebody could walk onto their campus right now and shoot up the school again. Because there's no security. You can walk in through any entrance of the school, through Westcott or the main entrance or wherever. And the reason why that is such a high possibility is because the Florida State Police Department, they're not doing their jobs. They're not advancing security. They are not taking precautions into safety. They are focused on the wrong things. For example, me with my Annabelle case. And there's plenty of other examples that I can list too. But that's my primary focus right now is the Annabelle case. They are more worried about that than advancing their security. Oh, plenty of students are complaining that they don't feel safe going to school here because of what happened in April. But instead of listening to that, they instead go, oh, look, there's a guy that has absolutely nothing to do with us or our school. He's not wearing goggles. Let's stop him. Honestly, I think that school shootings have become a thing because schools have now become a gun-free zone. Because before they banned guns in schools, I never even heard of someone shooting up a school. But ever since they banned guns, now everyone's doing it. And the reason they're doing it is because the shooters know, hey, the chances of me getting shot, unless the cops show up, is slim to none. If a burglar knows that House A has a gun and House B does not, chances are he's going to break into House B. Now, if the burglar goes into a neighborhood where the chances of everyone having a gun is higher, chances are he's probably not going to rob that neighborhood because it's not worth getting shot. I believe that our Second Amendment right to bear arms is very important because it keeps us safe. Weapons were designed to keep us safe. They were designed for wars, they were designed for display, they were designed for certain sports, but mainly they were designed to keep us safe. And I think schools banning guns and the Democrats repeatedly trying to ban guns is actually a danger and a threat to our society. And I think that if they ever do actually ban guns, then gun violence is just going to go up now because it seems that criminals love doing illegal shit. Well, because now criminals are going to be like, hey, fucking no one has a gun. Now we can just kill whoever without consequences. I'm going to tell you right now, if they ever ban guns, I would own a gun illegally for my own safety. I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I value my safety over the law. I'm not going to put myself in danger just to uphold the law. I'm not doing that. People say gun violence will go down if you ban guns. Well, no, you're not, because who's going to stop an illegal who illegally possesses a firearm? Kind of like how y'all outlawed certain drugs. There's still meth heads and crack heads and people addicted to substances. People smoke weed on a regular basis, in public, by the way. And most times, cops don't give a shit. Even though weed is technically illegal unless you have a medical card. So yeah, I strongly argue that banning guns is actually putting more people in danger. Because if Eichner knew there was the possibility that people on campus also had firearms and they could shoot back at him and kill him before the police arrived on scene, he would have second-guessed what he did. I recently saw in the news the other day a Texas man attempted to rob a gas station and he was shot by every single customer in the store. Perfect example of why our Second Amendment is actually protecting us, not endangering us. Matter of fact, most times shooters illegally own their weapons anyway. Eichner stole that shotgun from his mother. It was not his. And before I end things off, let me ask you this for the Florida State students who are listening. Do you honestly feel safe going to school here knowing that an Eichner copycat could walk on campus at any given moment and blow up the whole school again? Why are you even still going to school here? I genuinely don't understand why anyone still supports this school after the shit that they've been pulling this year. Is it because it's a lot of money? Is it because of your friends? Is it because you have goals and ambitions and dreams that you are aspiring to and you're in school for that reason to help you get there? Now let me ask you this. Is it worth your life? Because every time you step on campus, you're quite literally risking your life. Now, if campus at least upped their security, I wouldn't make that argument, but the fact that they have done absolutely nothing and they are focusing on petty shit like my Annabelle case instead, I would strongly argue that every time you walk on that campus, you are quite literally putting yourself in danger, because there is absolutely nothing stopping anybody from walking on that campus and doing what Eichner did. And that is because of the Florida State Police Department. The school shooting is the fault of Florida State and everyone who is in charge of keeping it safe and running it, just as it is equally Eichner's fault for doing what he did. So, thank you for listening. I am going to send this podcast to the Florida State Police Department so that hopefully they'll listen to what I have to say. I think they'll find the things that I had to say about them in the school very interesting. And there's nothing they can do about it either. We have the freedom of speech, so I can talk about what I'm talking about on here, and I have proof of the things that I am saying. I'm being very honest. If anyone from the Florida State Police Department tries to contact me about this podcast or about the Annabelle doll or anything else at all, I will quite literally ignore them. The only reason they should contact me is if I actually break the law. And if they arrest me, they better catch me actively breaking the law, which I don't have a reason to do that, or have a warrant out for my arrest, which they won't obtain because I haven't broken the fucking law. That's the last thing I have to say about the Florida State Police. If they make any attempt to contact me whatsoever, I will ignore them. If they call me and I pick up and I find out that it's someone from Florida State Police Department, I'm literally hanging up without another word. I do not want to talk to them. There's no point in talking to them. We just run around in circles. It's all a bunch of circle jerk bullshit. Thanks for listening. This is the Adonis Podcast.